body and grinding down the
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of what was intended to be Jonriel Casimero's weekend title defense, Casimero has been denied permission to defend the title versus Butler due to BBOC medical violation. Jonriel Casimero has literally landed in hot water. The three-division titleist is now at risk, being forced to vacate his WBO Bantamweight title due to his use of a sauna days ahead of a scheduled title defense in Liverpool. Casimero was due to face mandatory challenger Paul Butler this Friday, but is no longer permitted to go through with the fight after violating the terms of British Boxing Board of Control's medical guidelines. The BBOC has a strict zero-tolerance policy regarding the use of saunas to lose weight before a fight. The British Boxing Board of Control has been made aware, with supporting evidence, that Mr. Casimero has made use of a sauna in close proximity to his World Boxing Organization Championship contest on the 22nd of April in Liverpool. Robert Smith, General Secretary of the BBBOC, stated in a letter to all involved parties for this weekend's main event, a copy of which was obtained by BoxingScene.com. As you are aware, this is against the BBBOC's medical guidelines, and therefore we can't permit him to compete in the proposed contest on Friday.
I've got some questions.
The British Boxing Board of Control seems to have a protocol that bars the use of saunas ahead of a fight, presumably within a certain time frame. But how would the British Boxing Board of Control have known that Jonriel Casimero was using a sauna ahead of the fight?
They say they have evidence.
How did they acquire that evidence? Who sent it to them? The Philippines' Casimero is now forced out of a plant title defense versus Butler for the second time in 4 months, and once again met with a show cause letter from the WBO to avoid being stripped of the belt. Please be advised that on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, the WBO confirmed receipt of email correspondence from the British Boxing Board of Control advising that supporting evidence was provided to the BBBOC.
Who provided it to them?
Regarding Jonriel Casimero using a sauna in proximity to his scheduled WBO Bantamweight Mandatory Championship contest against Paul Butler on Friday, April 22, 2022, at the Echo Arena, Liverpool, England.
Wait a minute, you're telling me all of this is because he used the sauna?
You've got to put your thinking caps on, kids. If the British Boxing Board of Control has such a safety protocol in play in reference to the use of saunas ahead of a fight, it's likely a safety measure intended to prevent fighters from draining themselves before a fight. Luis Batista Salas, chairman of the WBO's Championships Committee, stated in a letter addressed to Aegis Climax, Casimero's manager, per the British Boxing Board of Control, Casimero's actions are against the board's medical guidelines, and therefore he will not be permitted to compete accordingly. Therefore, considering the foregoing determination of the British Boxing Board of Control, the relevant conditions stated in this committee's resolutions, and the facts stated therein, Casimero is hereby ordered to show cause within the next 48 hours as to why the WBO Bantamweight Championship title shall not be declared vacant.
Aegis Climax, what happened to Sean Gibbons?
Unbeknownst to most, there was a rift. There was actually a rift between Jonriel Casimero and Sean Gibbons, and I think this service has asked some confirmation that the two have parted ways.
I actually heard a rumor that they split some weeks ago, but I didn't know for sure till now.
Casimero was under the same obligation following his late withdrawal from a planned December 11th title defense versus Butler to have taken place in Dubai. The scheduled main event was canceled after Casimero was unable to make it to the pre-fight weigh-in after reportedly being hospitalized due to gastritis. Sufficient medical proof was provided to the WBO, allowing Casimero to retain the bantamweight title he has held since a November 2019 third-round knockout of Zolani Tete in Birmingham, England. Just 2 title defenses have followed, along with 4 canceled fights, including 2 with Butler, who for the second time in 4 months has seen a bid to become a 2-division titleist fall apart during fight week.
The last time that happened, the WBO made it crystal clear.
Better not be no issues the next time out, because if there are, John Riel Casimero will come under grave risk of being stripped by the WBO. We must stress that Casimero has not fulfilled a mandatory title defense obligation since his title acquisition on November 30th, 2019, noted Batista Salas. In other words, 2 years and 4 months have transpired without Casimero discharging his mandatory obligation, and therefore, Casimero is in clear violation of the WBO regulations of World Championship contests. Casimero arrived in England last week, reportedly well on track to making the bantamweight limit for his rescheduled fight with Butler.
I guess he tried to sweat out the last couple of pounds.
Sweat it out in the sauna. There is a dispute over the amount of weight that the Filipino in the past few days. Weight checks conducted by the BBBOC allege that he has lost 10 pounds since Saturday. A representative from Casimero's team informed BoxingScene.com that his weight check as of Tuesday morning was 119.8, just 1.8 pounds above the bantamweight limit. According to the scale they have been using ahead of his attempted 3rd title defense. The BBBOC is investigating the matter, complete with requesting the name of each member of Mr. Casimero's team, as their compliance in this matter may affect the permission to work in the UK in the future.
Jesus, the British Boxing Board of Control is really not fucking around.
John Riel Casimero has fought just twice since winning his 3rd divisional title. And bear in mind, he won that title 2 years ago.
Well, that's the kind of schedule they keep you on at the PBC, ain't it?
After John Riel Casimero beat Zolani Tete. After they tried to go into the Naoya Inoue unification match, which was subsequently ruined by the pandemic in 2020, pandemic that shut everything down, John Riel Casimero ended up on the PBC side of things, and since then he's only fought twice. Only 2 times.
Once against Duke Micah.
That subsequent Guillermo Regandiao stinker fight that wasn't appealing to the eye, it was appalling.
There was an opportunity in there before that fight to unify with Nonito Donaire.
Before the Guillermo Regandiao fight took place, there was an opportunity for John Riel Casimero and his team to set up a fight between reigning WBC champion Nonito Donaire. And due to a rift between the teams,
the manner in which Rachel Donaire was treated,
Nonito Donaire's wife, trainer, and manager, coupled with
the fiasco of a body testing,
Casimero people didn't process their paperwork in a timely fashion, and the Donaires, they would have none of it. They moved on.
Seemed to me like the Casimero people didn't do what they needed to do to secure that unification match.
He ended up fighting Guillermo Regandiao instead in a fight that wasn't visually appealing. It was appalling. He won that fight by the skin of his teeth, and that led us here to the Paul Butler WBO mandated title fight.
Everything we've already talked about.
The BBBOC claims to have evidence that John Riel Casimero used a sauna far too close to fight week. Too close for comfort.
Who gave them that evidence?
Because someone would have had to. Someone who knew John Riel Casimero's whereabouts and what he would be doing and when he would be doing it.
You think he's got a mole in his team?
Well, it's either that or the BBBOC has field operatives tasked with following fighters like John Riel Casimero around to ensure that they are adhering to their provisions and protocols. It's either somebody ratted him out or somebody from the BBBOC's been following him around England all this time.
Well, that's some sophisticated setup they've got across the pond.
You notice that John Riel Casimero, he's in bed with Aegis Climas. That can be interpreted as a split between John Riel Casimero and Sean Gibbons as his acting manager, and Aegis Climas being there, Aegis Climas, who's good buddies with the people over there at Top Rank, who promotes Naoya Inoue.
Aegis Climas was managing him, right?
I don't know, but it looks like had John Riel Casimero won this weekend's mandated title defense, what he would have then moved to do was unify with the winner of Inoue versus Donaire 2.
It's the impression I get because Aegis Climas is managing him.
Not Sean Gibbons. Not Sean Gibbons, who he has been at odds with the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. Not Sean Gibbons, who's doing a lot of business these days with the PBC. No, it's Aegis Climas that's managing John Riel Casimero now, and Aegis Climas has had a long, healthy working relationship with the people over there at Top Rank who just so happen to promote Naoya Inoue.
It looks like John's gonna get stripped.
And that WBO title, it might go to Paul Butler. Paul Butler, who is a pro-bellum fighter.
I don't know, but that's what it looks like.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that if Jonreal Casimero gets to hang on to the WBO title and successfully defends it against Paul Butler, maybe we do see him fight the winner of Donaire versus Inoue too. Maybe we do. If he gets stripped and the title goes to Paul Butler, well, the only cash fight out there for Paul Butler is to take on the winner of Inoue versus Donaire 2. So any way you slice it, it looks like we can perhaps look forward to an undisputed title fight going down at Bantamweight.
If Jonreal Casimero left Sean Gibbons, I think he made the right move.
Might have, but I think he waited too long to do it, and this is more or less the end result.
Might be a day late and a dollar short.
The WBO seemed to be putting the squeeze on him. BBBOC as well. They're sticking it to him.
He should have left Sean Gibbons sooner.
His tenure at the PBC has costed him, I think, in more ways than he realized when he initially ended up over there, because ending up over there
It distanced him from Naoya Inoue, a top-ranked fighter.
and in spite of that, a unification match landed in his lap, and they fucked that up. The Nonito Donaire fight over what was the treatment of Rachel Donaire, Nonito's wife, and
not processing their anti-doping paperwork in a timely fashion.
And at this time, what Jonreal Casimero and his people really have is a little over 24 hours to sort this mess out. And I don't know what's going to happen. It looks like he might get stripped. We'll just have to wait and see what shakes out.
Because it's a mess.
And other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Eddie Hearn has declared that Canelo Alvarez wants to fight in London in December. Canelo will face Dimitri Bivol on May 7th, then Gennady Golovkin on September 17th, and Hearn named John Ryder or Joshua Buatsi versus Craig Richards winner as possibilities for his final fight of 2022.
I think after Golovkin, most people want to see him fight the winner of Smith versus Beterbiev.
Smith versus Beterbiev, which is supposed to be going down June 18th, Madison Square Garden.
That unification match.
We're here thinking about who Canelo Alvarez might fight 3 fights from now towards the end of this year. Presumptuous to say the least, but that's what happens when you've separated yourself from everyone else the same way that Canelo Alvarez has.
People just start assuming you're going to beat every guy they put in front of you.
In front of Canelo Alvarez is Dimitri Bivol. At this time, that is his next fight. A tougher fight, I think, than a Gennady Golovkin trilogy or facing the winner of Richards versus Buatsi towards the end of this year.
Yeah, I think that's a tougher fight than all of those fights.
It's funny. I think that if Dimitri were to, by some chance, upset the apple cart for Canelo Alvarez, I could still see Canelo fighting Gennady for a 3rd time.
Yeah, even if he were to lose to Dimitri at light heavyweight, I could see it happening.
It's no knock on Gennady Golovkin to say that he's not the man here today that he was yesterday when he initially faced Canelo Alvarez the first 2 times.
No knock on him to say the guy got old.
Happens to everybody. Happens to the best of us and the rest of us. Everybody gets old. And here today, Gennady Golovkin is well past his prime, whereas Canelo Alvarez is in it.
In the thick of it.
168 pounds may be remembered in years to come as what was Canelo Alvarez's best weight. He's plowing through all of these guys, all of these unbeaten champions, though let's be honest, all of these unbeaten champions, they haven't proven to be the same caliber of fighter that Gennady Golovkin has proven himself to be at his prescribed weight.
Yeah, none of those guys were ever thought of as pound-for-pound fighters.
Better still, this looks to be Canelo Alvarez's best weight.
168 pounds.
Though before it comes to that, before it becomes about a Gennady Golovkin trilogy, he must first make it past Dimitri Bivol. And Eddie Hearn feels Bivol may be the toughest fight for Canelo outside of Floyd Mayweather. Says, I've got to tell you, I'm not even talking about Canelo Alvarez against Triple G until this Bivol fight is over, Hearn said to the DAZN Boxing Show. I saw clips of Bivol. He's looking sensational on the pads. His footwork, his movement, his punching power. I'm telling you now, this may be the toughest fight of Canelo Alvarez's career outside of Floyd Mayweather Jr. This is a really tough fight. I think if you're talking about destruction and power, Beterbiev is the guy. If you're talking about technical ability mixed with a little bit of punching power, smartness, and freshness, you're talking about Dimitri Bivol. Beterbiev is old. There were signs against Callum Johnson, against these guys. When have you seen Dimitri Bivol hurt in a fight? When have you seen Dimitri Bivol look like he might lose a fight? Never! How good is Dimitri Bivol? We're gonna find out.
That's a big part of the reason I wanted Canelo to pick him.
I've maintained my original position throughout. Dimitri Bivol isn't just fighting for a check. He's fighting because he likes his chances. He's not in awe of Canelo Alvarez, and he doesn't appear to be shrinking in the moment on the precipice of what is the biggest fight of his career against the biggest name in boxing right now.
At least one of them.
Certainly the biggest name in boxing in this part of the world, in this country, the United States of America. Nobody moves the needle quite like Canelo Alvarez here stateside.
Fighting Dimitri in May.
And regardless of how that goes for him at light heavyweight, I feel like he will still face Gennady Golovkin in September.
Think about it.
If he were to beat Dmitry Bivol and become that division's WBA light heavyweight champion, venturing into his fourth weight class, it would behoove him to take his foot off the gas a bit. And it's no knock on Gennady Golovkin to say that the man's gotten older, and at this point,
That fight's not going to be as hard for Canelo now as it was years ago.
Canelo is in his prime, and Gennady isn't. There are a lot of people out there, they feel that should those guys lock horns for a third time, this time, Canelo's going to stop him. Canelo's going to knock him out.
I don't dismiss that possibility.
We've seen Gennady Golovkin hurt 2 times, look human, at least 2 times since he fought Canelo Alvarez in the subsequent years that followed. He was hurt by Sergey Didivianchenko, hurt to the body. More recently, he was hurt to the body by Japan's own Ryota Murata. It's not a coincidence. Canelo Alvarez knows to go there.
If he didn't before, he does now.
I think everybody does. I think that Sergey Didivianchenko in some ways exposed the kink in Gennady Golovkin's armor, that he can take the head punches. He can take the head punches just fine, but it's the body shots.
The body's the ticket.
There's no easy way to say that Gennady Golovkin might be little more than a tune-up fight for Canelo Alvarez at this point. And should he beat Dmitry Bivol or lose to him,
Regardless of what happens at light heavyweight.
Canelo is going to need a tune-up fight. And that's what Gennady Golovkin might be at this point for Canelo Alvarez, who's in his prime.
Gennady might be a tune-up fight for that guy at this point. There's no easy way to say that.
Well, that might be the situation. A rather lucrative tune-up fight that's sure to get more attention than any other tune-up fight out there. I mean, believe you me, as far as tune-up fights go, this would be one of the most lucrative tune-up fights Canelo Alvarez or any boxer could aspire to have. Though at this point, I feel, given how Canelo Alvarez has been looking and where the fight is scheduled to take place at super middleweight, not middleweight, super middleweight, where Canelo Alvarez seems all but invincible. For Canelo, a guy like Gennady might be little more than a tune-up fight.
Hey, what about all this Greg Richards, Joshua Buatsi stuff?
That's not the first time we've heard those names thrown into the hat for Canelo Alvarez's potential third fight this year. It isn't. Though I don't know that Team Canelo is married to the idea of facing the winner of that fight in London.
It's possible.
I don't know that he's married to the idea of facing the winner of that fight, but it's possible because, if he tunes up with Gennady Golovkin and stops that guy the way a lot of people think he's going to stop that guy, if he beats Bivol, tunes up with Gennady, he might want to cap off the year with the winner of that fight.
Nothing major, just a voluntary defense of the WBA light heavyweight title.
Assuming he beats Dmitry Bivol and takes it from him.
Yeah, it could happen.
This ain't the first time we've heard that Canelo Alvarez wants to fight overseas. He wants to fight abroad in front of a UK crowd. Eddie's got away with them, as we all know. So yeah, it's possible. At minimum, it's possible.
I wouldn't dismiss it.
Boxing being the way it is, though, now is not the time to worry about that. Now is not the time to focus on what you're going to do at the end of the year. You got this Bivol guy in front of you, and you need to take care of him.